You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market, from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Vanazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody, that rockin' tune means it's time once again for a little program we like to call Around These Parts, the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. A lot of interesting stuff popping off for you on this program, and, of course, has been popping off for quite some time, 600-plus episodes for you guys to sink your teeth into. You say to yourself, hey, I got a long flight coming up one of these days, or a long road trip. You want 600 hours of options goodness, we got you covered. That's just one show. We got 14 others for you guys to sink your teeth into. You say, oh my goodness, how can I get access to so much options goodness to go right straight into my ear holes? Easiest place, theoptionsinsider.com. If you're on the go, easiest place, probably grab our mobile app available for iOS, Android, and the beloved Fire OS. Just search for Options Insider. It'll come up. Or, of course, grab our network feed, our main network feed that's available via iOS or, Google Podcasts or your Stitchers or your iHeartRadios or wherever you get your favorite programs. Again, you can always subscribe just the option block if you just want that. But if you want the full fire hose, the daily news, all the other fun stuff we do throughout the week here, the main network feed, Options Insider Radio Network. I know it's a big, long thing. We only got to type it in once. And you get all that goodness. And however you listen, including those of you who can join us live every Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern via Mixlr, MIXLR. We love all you guys as well. However you do listen, make sure you hit us up with those questions, those comments. We love to hear from you guys. It makes our day. Really, it does. Particularly the Rock Lobster. It really just makes him smile. Not much can really say that. So it's keep sending them in. Speaking of the Rock Lobster, I am joined on the program by my usual cohorts, my partners in crime. I'm going to give him even more umbrage. I'm going to start the other way. Let's start in the land of all things pickles and water gardens or whatever the heck they got going on out there in St. Charles, Illinois, where we are joined by Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisors. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program, sir.
Oh, always happy to be here. And it's, that would be a long trip, 600 hours of option broadcasting. It's funny because we actually went into the kids were on spring break last week. So we took them to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And then we went to this restaurant, the Safe House. It's a Spy restaurant. It's brand new over on Ontario Street. Highly recommended, by the way, to take the kids during the day. But, I'm trying to figure, because we parked a few blocks away, and I'm trying to figure out where we actually go to get to the restaurant, because it was around a few blocks. It was like maybe 3 or 4 blocks away. But we go. I did the navigate to and then the restaurant on my phone, and it accidentally took me up to the one in Milwaukee. So I learned that it's a 23-hour walk from Chicago to Milwaukee. So what you should do, folks, if you really want to listen to 600 straight hours of the option block, number one, get several batteries for your phone. But number two, maybe walk from Chicago to Milwaukee a few times. You do that maybe like about, 18 times, and then you can be up to date on our show.
There you go. I like it. A very specific breakdown. I heard about that Spy restaurant. I'll be going there this weekend, so don't give me any clues to the secret password to get in. We're looking forward to finding it out for ourselves. And moving now to a place where they don't have Spy restaurants or really restaurants of any kind, because it's still predominantly a hunter-gatherer society out there. We're joined by Rock Lobster, beaming in from the great land before time known as Maine. Mr. Rock Lobster, welcome back to the program, sir.
There were so many slights in there. I'm too shocked to call umbrage. I've been slighted up and down by a guy that lives in the pickle capital of the world, for crying out loud. Jeez Louise. Actually, he just laughed at it. That's what he did. I think he laughed at it.
What did I do? I discussed how people can listen to the show by walking from Chicago to Milwaukee.
Oh, I thought you giggled at Longo's description of my life. Anyway,
oh yeah, that was kind of funny. I gotta go.
All right, okay, there we go. I thought I heard this laugh in the background. Anyway, I'm fine. I'm here. We're doing the show. It's sunny and the snow is finally melting.
So you've moved on from quote unquote mud season, or is that still going?
It is mud season. Yeah, it's still mud season. It is. I got another week of it, probably.
One more week of mud season. While he digs out from the mud, let's keep on rolling and dig right into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. Like the name implies, this is indeed the portion of the program where we break down what was moving, shaking, rocking, rolling, lighting things up in today's market activity. Another relatively quiet one, all things considered, especially given some of the movements we've seen not too long ago. But today, not so much, even though we did have a decent range on the lows here in the S&P, about a 21 handle range total on the lows, ending the day just a blip down on the old screen with about 0.2% off. Most of the major indices following suit again, so ending the day after maybe a little bit of adventure in between, ending the day with a bit of a whimper. Most of the major indices off slightly on the day. VIX cash taking the opportunity, coming back from the weekend, to tick up a wee bit, but I do say a wee bit because not a ton, about a tenth of a handle or so, right around that 12.5 level, which I do believe is actually exactly my prediction for vol views next week. Rock Lobster, you missed it, by the way. It was, I picked 12.5 last week for the crystal ball. Your cohort there, Greasy Meatball, picked 12 even. And guess where VIX cash was exactly as the show ended?
Well, probably close to 12.50.
12.25. It was right at 12.25. So we were waiting for the next tick to determine who was the winner, and it promptly ticked down to 12.24. So I gave it to him. I was magnanimous. And then half a second later, it was up to 12.26. If I had just waited a little longer, it would have been mine. But then again, I'm not bitter or anything. But it was a pretty funny one. We never had that before on the crystal ball, where it was exactly evenly split between two predictions. And I think everyone kept it the same for this week. I stayed at 12.5. I think Mark stayed at 12, and I think Russell, ever the buyer, was up around 12.8. So I think everyone kept it the same. So it looks like we'll have another interesting battle this week if all things are equal. But that said, enough of our VIX prognostications. We'll get more into that on Friday for vol views. Meanwhile, let's see what was cooking in your respective necks of the woods. Let's start with you, Uncle Mike. What was catching your eye in today's activity, sir?
Not a lot. I shouldn't say not a lot, but from start to finish. But during the day, we had a big sell-off, and then things came back rather quickly after the morning sell-off. So overall, I would say today was one of those days to where I'm pretty bullish on this, just because of the fact that markets came down and buyers came in. Typically on days like that, I like to buy. And guess what? I bought. I sold some puts. I sold some put spreads at the end of the day today on SPY. So I think that when that happens, I think it's a very good sign for things. I think that we're at the lower level of the rally, meaning we've pulled back a little bit. So if you want to get into the mix, if we don't gap up tomorrow and we're at these same levels, I like what the opportunities are at this stage in the market based on what happened today. The other thing that I noticed in terms of what happened, it's really not really lighting up the tape all that much, but it is there. Natural gas got the tar beat out of it today, right at the open. But aside from that, oil was down, but it was not down a ton. And looking through the rest of my list of things here with which I watch, gold was up a little bit. Silver was basically flat on the day. TLT was up nicely. The thing that I noticed about that, TLT, of course, being the longer-term government bond ETF, it did not come down as the markets came up. So bond values, not bond yields, but bond values stayed high, even though markets came down. Overall, throughout the sectors, I'd say this is pretty much, there's no real one sector sticking out that much to say of all the XLs. Consumer discretionary, which isn't a huge part of the market, it definitely plays a role, was down about 0.4%. But other than that, no, I shouldn't say just consumer discretionary. Also, materials, which is also a smaller part, was down about 0.4% as well. But aside from that, we had a lot of movement, but we didn't have a lot of change.
No change here on the old option block today as well. Same panel, you know and love Mr. Rock Lobster. What caught your eye in today's activity, sir?
Anybody notice Tesla trading almost $300?
Oh, you were just mentioning that. I was saving that for next, but we can get into that now if you like. I got to imagine that was lighting up the pit chat today, was it not?
It was. Actually, we had a 300 times spread. I think we talked about it last week. I just, you know what? It's too close to not. So we set up a 300 times spread with a protective put, and it went to 300. So we had some happy people in the pit chat. I thought that was very interesting. Also, what the heck is going on with the volatility? It is just, it's up a point, it's down a point. It's just, it almost seems like every tidbit, is the Russians going to do something? Are the Russians not involved in the election? There's the thread on the left saying, oh my gosh, there is highly circumstantial, and then there's not, and then the vol goes up, and then it goes down again because nothing comes out, and then the Senate's arguing about oh my gosh. Anyway, it feels like until there is real news on something, volatility is just going to be slapped around in one handle increments by the algos. That's the only thing I can think of. Going forward with this.
Since you mentioned, let's get into it. We can't bury the lead anymore. I think you caused this, Mr. Rocklobster. You're the one who invoked last week Tesla around 300. I don't think any of us thought it would get here by the next show, but c'est la vie. Tesla lighting up. It didn't quite get there today. Got ever so tantalizingly close. 299 even was the high today. So just flirting with it. Reminds me of that time when we almost hit that high. I believe it was in the Dow. Got like a tick off. And then for a while there, it seemed like we might not get there again. And oh, how tantalizingly close. Of course we did. Remains to be seen if Tesla can cross that level, closing today shy of the 299 level, but still up about 20 handles, a little over 7% on the day. If you're wondering why, if you had your head buried in the sand all day, it's because, now it is amazing, such a self-fulfilling prophecy this is. The hyperbole goes out there, drives up the stock. Of course, there was some good news today, too. They shipped a surprise, more vehicles. They delivered 25,000 vehicles in the first quarter, a 69% increase over the year-ago quarter. So that, of course, there is some meat on those bones as well as this year as well. It's not, or this time as well, this rally. Who knows? Next rally, we'll see. This time there actually were some fundamentals there. But still, it's this self-fulfilling prophecy of hype leads to the stock, leads to valuation, leads to, of course, the valuation getting so crazy now Tesla has surpassed Ford in valuation, and it's threatening GM. It could hit that later this week if it stays on these levels. So, of course, that leads to more hype, which, of course, will lead to more valuation. So it is an endless cycle. They seem to have mastered it over there, so I suppose hats off to them. But yeah, it's been impressive to watch. Of course, we got people now putting outperform ratings on this name, looking forward to how they're going to ramp up Model 3 production. That's, of course, the big question mark. They took all those pre-orders for Model 3s. It's going to be finally their affordable Tesla sedan. How's a Gigafactory going to hold up? All these other things. And we did see some decent volume out here today. This name's been averaging about 117,000 contracts a day, doing about 3x that, about 300,000, only about 1.5 to 1 calls over puts. So it wasn't this call palooza, unless people were scrambling to blast out some puts today as well. I've ran into quite a few people of late who I might call quote unquote normals, not within the option bubble that we all live in here on this program. A lot of you listening probably do as well, where you're really glued into the markets, you pay more attention to these things, and even they have tangentially come to the dark side of just selling puts in Tesla. So it's amazing how prevalent and pervasive this mentality is out there, that Tesla can do no wrong, and also perhaps the juice is just so juicy it's hard to resist. Of course, that wasn't the only news out here. Tesla rallying. Rising tide does not lift all boats in the auto sector. Ford taking it on the chin today, down to about 11.30 or so. GM also off after their numbers are going to be below what analysts expected for March auto sales. And also we saw other names just kind of taking it on the chin. AutoZone, a 52-week low out there. Other names, Advanced Auto Parts. So you'd think this would be boom times for the auto business with this big name taking off, getting all this valuation, all this heat. But it seems like the rest of the auto business kind of lagging behind what's been going on out here, at least in the hype department when it comes to Tesla. Mr. Rock Lobster, as the diehard libertarian fundamentalist out there in the medieval kingdom of Maine, this must really just drive you crazy to see. Granted, they had some sales this time, so at least it wasn't all smoke and mirrors. But still, on a valuation level, it's got to drive you crazy to see these numbers, see people putting on fresh outperform ratings on a name that really still is not really making any money, and is, as your counterpart there is not afraid to mention every time he comes on the shows, that it's just linked to the government teat just inexorably. What are your thoughts here on all things Tesla? And I'm sure your folks out there were pretty excited about it today in the chat room as well.
They were. I'm convinced that if Elon Musk is not the best sales guy on the planet right now, find me a better one, because
Mark Longo.
I guess so.
I can sell a show or two. I don't know if I can sell this stock, but we'll see.
I mean, he's figured out a way to, work the government subsidy. Now there's a new president. I think he's going to be on that guy's kitchen cabinet or something. And, he's got spaceships. He's got everything that the government likes, I guess. And, it's much easier to like a stock that the government likes. I'll say that much. Even look at some of the drug companies that the market, that the government doesn't like. You haven't heard anything great out of the administration on drug companies and stuff like that. So, and possible. So I think, and I guess what he's selling, he's going to sell, everybody's going to have solar shingles on their roofs. So it is an incredible machine, awesome hype machine. And, and if they actually start to kick down and start to produce a few dollars, and maybe just everybody's buying the whole concept of electric cars, and they have the best electric car technology right now. That's what we've got. And I know it's a hard, I think I own like 10 shares though. So I can't quite help myself, but it's continuing to roll. I just don't know when it stops. I mean, at some point you would think of that cars that have been in the car industry, but it feels like, and I remember a couple of weeks ago, right, Intel's buying Mobileye, as I recall. So there's something to the idea of these, electric cars being kind of like Total Recall-esque or something like that. And for now, they're the leader. And I don't think any of the car companies anymore have the money to buy them. They might have a long time ago, but they certainly don't have it anymore. So we'll see how they compete, how they compete with Tesla. It feels very strange, though, when you think about it. You've got Tesla just sort of making this thing, and they're on a niche, and everybody else is doing something different. There's still kind of the old-fashioned cars. And, you never know. At some point, maybe that'll just shift. People, but you know what? These electric cars are just much better, and they start selling more than they can make. It's crazier things have happened. Let's say that. So it's possible. It's not just the high stock price, but I don't know. Musk just seems to be able to get stuff done. I don't know how he does it, but that's why he's him, and we're all just doing other stuff.
Yeah, we're not as well versed on the government teat, it sounds like, as him. But that's interesting stuff. Also, wasn't just Tesla lighting it up today. Amazon hitting a new 52-week high, got an 889.16. Red Hat also up there, 87.33, and even everyone's favorite Viva Systems, interesting one, also new 52-week high today, 151, about 51 and a quarter or so out there. Uncle Mike, before we move on really quickly, anything catching your eye? Could be Amazon, or of course, could be the much ballyhooed Tesla. I'm sure it's a huge part of your holdings, as well as I know you like to look at Ford every now and then. You still looking at anything in the automotive realm, or are you beyond such things right now?
Beyond such things at this point, but it might be interesting to see if some of these policies come into play in terms of keeping Ford in America and that type of thing. Not necessarily that they're going to be better or worse, but a lot more attention is going to be called to Ford. And regard to Tesla, I mean, it's weren't they a band like in the late 80s, early 90s? That's what I know about Tesla.
A great band in the late 80s, early 90s. An awesome band, some might say. Even though they only had a few songs. But those few songs were quite good. Really quickly before we move on here from the trading block, it's that time of the month. It is volume time. The numbers from our friends over there at the Options Clearing Corp came out just right before showtime, so we like to squeeze them in. A decent month all told. March up volume, cleared volume up 9% total. Remember, OCC clears lots of stuff, so that's combined across the board. Let's break it down a little bit. Overall, exchange listed options, that's where we like to play, hit 374.5 million contracts, that's up 8% from March of last year. Equity options, drilling down a little farther, about 329, almost 330 million of that total. That's a 7% increase from March of last year. That includes cleared ETF options volume of about 157 million contracts. That's an 11% increase from March of last year. And rounding it out there, index options, a good month to be in the index options business, 18% with 44 million, almost 45 million contracts, up 18% from March of last year. Uncle Mike or Mr. Rock Lobster, any thoughts on those numbers before we roll on into the odd block?
Kind of surprised that index options were that high. What is driving the index options that much this month? I mean, I know that we've been bullish in recent months, but what is driving just the index specifically?
You're right. That is interesting. I remember seeing some stats at the SIBO RMC conference. Of course, SPX and those take up a lion's share of that. And they showed how much volume SPX, how much oxygen in the options room SPX takes up on a given day, and it's pretty surprising. You're right, but this past month hasn't exactly been rock'em sock'em robots. Vol has been low. The index hasn't been doing a heck of a lot, so not exactly a month. You'd think it could also. We have to look at the number of trading days this month versus last year. Also, you have to see exactly what was going on last year at this time. That was clearly a relatively quiet period as well. We're just coming off of the rock'em sock'em months that were January and February. So a lot that goes into that calculation that probably contributes to that number being so high this year, as opposed to just this March being awesome. We can dig into that a little bit. You can check it out for yourself. OCC Options Clearing Corp. They have all the numbers up there as well. Meanwhile, we got to keep rolling right on into the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. That funky tune means it's time once again for the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we try to highlight some interesting options activity that caught our eye. Remember, you can always get this stuff and a lot more over there at theoptionsinsider.com every day of the week, not just on show days. We do it every day, all week long. So if you're missing us here. It's like let's say it's a Wednesday. You're like, oh, I'm missing the option block. Gotta wait another day to the live stream. There you go. Head on over to the website. You can read all the unusual activity for that day, and you can just play along with us in your head like you're doing it on the show, and you won't feel so sad anymore. All right, moving on. Let's kick things off here. We're in the iShares index ETFs a lot these days. It's kind of just where things are happening. This time, we're heading over to the iShares MSCI Hong Kong Index Fund ETF. Said that 5 times fast. It is ticker symbol EWH. Closing today about 22.44, up about 20 cents, or nearly 1%. It wasn't overall underlying that got our attention. It was the options, though. This thing only does like 300 contracts a day. If you're not familiar with this one, it's not really the most rock'em sock'em robots of names. Today, though, lighten it up. Doing 22,000 contracts and change. 630 to 1 calls over puts. Yes, they did 22,102 contracts. Of that, only 35 were puts. So get rid of that 35 and it would have been a ridiculous ratio. 630 is still one of the highest we've seen. Might be the highest. I'll have to check. Mr. Rockoff, that'll be a new category for you to track, which is what is the highest call to put or put to call ratio that we've seen on here. We got some outlandish numbers. Speaking of outlandish, you can scroll right down here. This name does 300 contracts a day. If you scroll down the list, you don't have to look very far to see exactly what caught our eye today. Yeah, it was the May 22s. And they went up for some size, not 300, not 600, not 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 or even 10,000. Nope, it was a total of almost 22,000, 21,658 to be precise, listeners. That started off with just 1,123 coming in paper buying for 65 cents. That went up one block on the SIBO. As the day went on, more and more and more coming in, chunks here, chunks there, all over the place. Somebody just had to get themselves some of these May 22s, paying 70, paying 65 cents. They went out 70 cents at 80. So our friend here probably smiling, at least on those early kind. Total, like I said, of nearly 22,000. Open interest, literally zero. So it's all opening here, and just an interesting one to watch. This one does not appear to have any stock or any other, like I said, no open interest, nothing else that could really show us some sort of contra indication here. It really does appear to be what it seems like on the surface. Someone's just loving themselves some EWH. This name has been kind of bouncing around a bit over the past year. Got as low as about 18.5 or so back in June of last year, and then hitting the highs pretty much right now, right around the 22.5 level or so. So that's kind of the range, about 18.5 on the downside, about a nice 4-point range, about 22.5 or so on the upside. It's been kind of range bound. Our friend here saying no more. We're going to break through that range north of the 22 handle. And I got 22,000 contracts that says it's going to happen by May expiration. This is an interesting one, Mr. Rocklauser, for the size, for the direction of it, and for the fact that this name does 300 contracts a day. So this guy, no matter what happens, he's going to be wearing these bad boys. Good luck getting out of this. So interesting, sir. Kick us off. What are your thoughts here on this mega call palooza in EWH?
You know, the whole thing with this, it's a lot of small strikes. There's somebody started with 1,000 lot, and then it went up to 20,000 contracts, and it felt you know sometimes in those strikes when there's that go along buyer, you know, they buy some and they put their bid up, and then they get filled and they keep their bid up and they get filled and they just keep trying and trying and trying. That's kind of what I call the cage match at a strike, where you just keep trying it and trying and trying it. I mean, they were offered at 65 cents, and actually on the day they're up a dime. I mean, it was hard to tell if it was a seller initiating or a buyer, but the buyer started in the morning and just kept posting bids and buying them. I mean, by the end of the day, they're paying 80 cents. So this feels like some sort of newsletter trade to me, probably on some sort of bullish Hong Kong thing, you know. Trump meets with China, and he and the premier get along great, and, you know, off to the races Hong Kong goes, the Hong Kong stock market. And you're right, you know, they are wearing these things until something happens. So I didn't see like blocks of stock. There's just too small of contracts. It just looks like somebody wants to own Hong Kong. The only trouble I have with this is, you know, it takes this. I mean, the thing's trading at all-time highs, so I don't know what they're expecting out of the Hong Kong market. I mean, maybe, you know, some of the highs we had a couple years ago, you know, when China was taking off. So it is just somebody put out, you know, a happy pill on this ETF, and I guess everybody's just jumping on the bandwagon, but it's just a big old bandwagon jumpage as far as I could tell.
Big old bandwagon jumpage into the cage match here in EWH. That's a good term for it. I like it. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. I'm going to mark that down here. To be watched here as we continue the party into a name that perhaps hasn't had too many parties around it of late. This is Fitbit, kind of another one, kind of like TiVo shows the danger sometimes of being a first mover in a space, that you can get pretty crowded pretty quick, and people, lower price competitors coming in undercutting you, and also deep pocketed competitors coming in and saying, hey, there's gold in them there hills, let's do that too. That's kind of the fate that seems to have befallen Fitbit here, ticker symbol FIT, of course. Closing today shy of $6, $5.82, off about a dime, or nearly 2%. This is the name that on a given day does about 15,000 contracts, of course, to it. So not bad volume today, doing nearly 19,000. Again, put heavy, as things seem to be about 16,000 of those 18,000 and change coming on the put side, and most of them coming in this mega trade here. Looks like someone perhaps giving up the ghost. Maybe this is who knows? Maybe this is a good sign for Fitbit that they're giving up on what appeared to have been a short put. Looks like someone came in recently and blasted out the April 6 puts with stock for 27 cents, and today, for whatever reason, deciding discretion, perhaps the better part of valor, and taking it off, buying back those puts for what did they pay for? About 36 cents. So a little bit of a loss on the puts. I don't have the stock print. Maybe Mr. Rock Lobster has it. We can see how he did on the stock, but it seems like, at least on the option leg, not looking that good. And of course, if he is on the other side of that coin, of course, if he is super concerned about covering a short put, then perhaps things are perhaps not looking good in the future. We shall see. For good old Fitbit, this was a lion's share of the activity again, total 15,004. Open interest, 19,000 and change. So clearly a lot of open interest, and there's no roll, no other legs we could see here. It really was just someone apparently giving up the ghost on that strike, which, if you scroll around, is kind of the one of the more active strikes out here. You got to go all the way out to the Jan 2018 3 strike on the put side. To get more open interest. That's about 20,000 contracts and change. And then the 8 calls in Jan 2018 at 15,000 open interest. So there's long-term paper open in Fitbit. Not so much in the near term that really, nothing really exceeds this. So this was the big near-term open interest strike, and someone deciding today that discretion, the better part of valor out here in Fitbit, and going the way of the dodo. As we all know, been a long kind of downward saga for Fitbit, most notably back last November in the earnings when they got kind of clipped from about $13 down to about 8.5. They've continued that long, slow slide. Like I said today, closing shy of $6. Mr. Rock Lobster, what? The stock was around $6, so he did all right on the stock at least there. So that's something for our friend to write home about. What are your thoughts here on our friend giving up the ghost on these puts in stock here in Fit?
Fit has not acted. You know what? Fit's been having a fit. That's the only thing I can say.
Have you ever owned a Fitbit up there in the hinterlands of Maine? Do they even work up there?
I guess if you jump up and down enough, they might.
Oh, that radiation and magnetism in the soil doesn't mess with them?
I've seen one Fitbit, I think. I've seen one. This was a $50 stock.
Oh yeah, they were the progenitor of this whole category pretty much, and then one by one, everyone and their mother decided to get into it and undercut them, and it's kind of been. Even we saw they picked up Pebble recently, at least the dregs of Pebble, which is interesting. I've owned both Fitbits and Pebbles in my day, and so I'm a bit of a connoisseur of this category. But yeah, it's still interesting stuff. Anyway, go ahead. I'm derailing you, sir. Go on.
Yeah, but you know what's somebody just gave up on this puts in stock today. I think they traded the stock around $6 when they sold the puts, and $6. They're like, yeah, nope, we're not. I don't want that ratio trade on anymore. I'm done. I'm getting out, and Fitbit is too. I guess Fitbit is just an unfit candidate for selling puts in as of right now. So they just want to get the heck out of Dodge. It sort of feels like GoPro. It's sort of a cool thing. I kind of like the product, but just the competition on those things. Although I would do stuff with my GoPro that I would never do with my phone. But anyway, that's they're both kind of destined. It feels like they're both destined for the same scrap bin unless they come up with some more some more and better ideas.
Yeah, you're right. GoPro, another example of that first mover getting just steamrolled by everybody else, and every little Chinese and overseas competitor making cheaper versions of what they do, and a crowded category and deep pockets coming to bear. Yeah, you're right. It's a challenge being the first mover, as we know, having been created the Options podcast a decade ago. Oh, how the space has morphed and evolved. And actually, not that much. Certainly not like the GoPro or the Fitbit space has. All right, moving on to our final name here. Let's kick it off. We're talking about cars and Tesla earlier. Let's wrap up the odd block with Carmax, another name that has been of interest of late. This name taking it on the chin. Another name. Like I said, AutoZone, also the auto sector, taking it on the chin today. The rising Tesla tide seems to just crush all other boats as opposed to lift them up. It's kind of just it's a tide of one in that scenario, which is kind of interesting. Again, closing today, 56.67, off about $2.50 or about a little over 4%. This is the name that does about 4,300 contracts a day, doing a little bit more than that, 75,000. To be precise, today about 8.5 to 1 calls over puts, and our attention was drawn out to the monthly Aprils, no weeklies in this one, just the straight up monthlies, and it was a bit of a vertical, a ratio vertical, I think you could say. It was the April 60-62.5 vertical going up. Looks like a little bit less. It started off about 1 by 2, a little bit less as the day finished up. Looks like paper selling 62 halves and then buying the 60s. Doing that, starting off the day about nearly 12,000 by 29,000 times. As the day went on, 2x more on the 60s, 24,000, and a fair bit more on the 62 halves as well, 37, nearly 38,000. Again, for doing it net for a dime to start, the latter kind at some different prices. Size OI on the 62 halves about 41,000. Which is why it seems like our friend here perhaps giving up the ghost on that more optimistic strike. Seeing today sell off and saying, 62 half, that might be a bridge too far. Let's readjust down to 60, a little bit more reasonable. There was 41,000 contracts open on this strike, about 38,000 going up today. Only 6,000 open on the 60s, so clearly opening paper. Also of interest, he's doing a little bit less size. Obviously, those 60s are meatier. Also, probably took it on the chin a bit on the 62 half. So all the signs of a roll, but not exactly a house money roll, more of perhaps good money after bad. Hopefully, for our friend's sake here, we hope not, but we shall see. This is the name that's been kind of vacillating all over as well, getting as low as about $45 back in midsummer of last year and hitting a high recently close to 69 and change. Not that long ago, back in mid-February, about a month and a half ago. So this name has been all over the place of late, and right now kind of obviously well off those highs, closing today, 56.67. Our friend here obviously thinking they got a little bit more in them. They got a little bit more oomph. They can hit 60 again. Hey, they were just 70 not that long ago. So let's see if they can do that again. But getting a little bit less optimistic, rolling on down to the 60s. Mr. Rock Lobster, take us home here on someone keeping the party alive, but a little bit more muted, turning down the music a bit here in Carmax.
I think the deal with Carmax, it just feels like a rollback down to the strike. It has all the flavor of closing, and I think just somebody wants a little more exposure, but they're trying to. What I thought was impressive is they still kind of want the bet to be on earnings, so that's actually it's kind of a big move for Carmax to do. To place those calls. I mean, obviously they wanted to get them closer, but it's kind of a one and done type of, a one and done type of play for the stock. So and I can't, it looks like it certainly has a reasonable shot because Carmax was trading in the high 60s. So I guess the algos just sold everything that wasn't Tesla today. That was automotive related because it doesn't look like a very expensive stock by any stretch. But I guess Carmax doesn't resell Teslas, I guess. But it looks like they're looking for a little bounce back up into the mid 60s.
Yes, indeed, sir. And that is going to do it for the odd block for today. And now let's keep on rolling. It's Monday. It means it's time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. And it's time. The votes are in. The tabulations have been tabulated. And the results are final. I've just been handed the envelope. Don't worry, I won't pull a Oscars 2017 and announce the wrong winner. But we did kick this thing off earlier this month. We've been doing it now for a couple of years. It's been pretty fun. It's our big BrokerMadness tournament. We thought, we can play two here in the options space. It's not all basketball. We can play two. So we picked 16 of the top options brokers, and we pit them against each other for your amusement and for you to win fun and fabulous prizes. So we started off with 16 brokers. We had, all of you guys playing, thousands of votes coming in via Twitter, as well as Facebook and stock twits, even email. Some of you old school guys emailing in your votes. We had quite a few upsets. We had Trading Block, the little upstart, new to the tournament this year, taking out perennial stalwarts, Interactive Brokers, and TD Ameritrade / Thinkorswim. So two titans of the option space that Trading Block took out one by one. So ballyhoo to them. They fought a good fight. They didn't make it all the way to the end, but they got pretty close. So got to tip your hat to them. We had Lightspeed taking out last year's champ Trade King. So they've had a good run as well. Also interesting and worthy of noting from this year's tournament that we added a lot more mainstream brokers this year. So we put in Vanguards and the Fidelities and Scott Trades, and we even put in Schwab, who's a mainstream, even though they have a big options component. And surprise, surprise, they got no love from any of our options voters. So I guess the moral of the story is options traders, they like specific brokerage firms. They don't really like. If you're listening to our shows, you're tuning into our Twitter and stuff, then you're probably a little bit more hardcore. And you guys like a little bit more of the hardcore brokers because Vanguard, Fidelity, Scott Trade all ousted in the first round. Schwab making it a little bit longer. They made it all the way to round 2. I think their affiliation with OX helping them out there, even though OX was on the tournament as well. So then they got ousted in round 2. So it's been an interesting tournament. The votes are now in across all the platforms: email, stock twits, Facebook, and Twitter. And I think if you add in the other votes, it was even more lopsided. It started off Lightspeed kind of pulling it out to an early. Actually, before I pick the results for you guys, let's have you guys vote. It came down, like I said last time, to Lightspeed versus Options House. An interesting fight. I won't give you the results just yet. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you. Lightspeed or Options House? Who do you think took the crown?
Options House.
Interesting. Or you reversed from last time. I think you were Lightspeed last time. Mr. Rock Lobster, same question for you.
I still think Lightspeed.
There we go. That's what makes a market. And it was an interesting fight. It started off Lightspeed pulling out to an early lead. Then Options House fighting back a bit, getting a nice little fight going. And then I guess Lightspeed would have none of it because they got more votes coming in. And it ended up a pretty good drubbing. Somewhere around 70-30, I think it was a little bit less than what we have on the Twitter here because there were some other votes on other platforms that turned it a bit, but still around that level of the 70-30. So a good win here for Lightspeed and kind of the little engine that could throughout most of the tournament, upsetting some big names coming in. That was kind of the moral of the story this year was really the little engines that could coming in. You had Options House, you had Trading Block, you had Lightspeed, all putting on a really good showings out here this year. The big names, not so much. So interesting to see all that playing out. Congratulations to Lightspeed. We'll have to have those guys on the network again soon to claim their fabulous trophy. There can be only one, and this year may it be Lightspeed Financial. They win. Of course, they have the live Vol X platform that a lot of you guys are fans of. I think that's kind of what was the ace in the hole for them. And also we have the Sterling Trader guys coming in this week who actually technically I believe own live Vol X now, and they're somehow a subsidiary of Lightspeed. We'll get all that sorted out when they come on the show later this week. We'll learn more about that. But congratulations to them. They are indeed the champion this year. By the way, if you're wondering, hey, did I win a prize? We haven't finished all those tabulations yet. We still got a lot of work ahead of us this week. So if you're saying, hey, did I win the Echo or the awesome swag box or perhaps some cool Options Insider gear, there will be 3 prizes, one of each of those. Those haven't been picked yet. We still have to tabulate all that stuff first. So that'll take a little while. But don't worry. By the way, same disclaimer always applies to that stuff. Physical prizes can only be shipped in the U.S., unfortunately. We've gone down that road many times in the past of shipping things all over the country, and it gets just crazy, or all over the planet, I should say, and it gets just too outlandish. So we limit the physical prizes to the U.S. Of course, digital stuff, that can be sent anywhere, including these shows. So we're glad you enjoyed them hither and yon, but we only can send prizes to the domestic U.S. So well done, Lightspeed, a well-earned victory. Looking forward to next year. This was a fun tournament. People really got involved. The brokers were playing along. The clients were playing along. People love a broker. They hate a broker. They use our tournament to express that. It was really fun. Let us know if you liked it. I think it looks like by the results you guys did, but if you have ideas or suggestions, maybe other tournaments we can do. It doesn't have to be brokers. Someone did point out there's almost enough exchanges to do a tournament. I thought that was pretty funny. So who knows? Maybe we'll mix it up, even though they're all kind of exchange groups now, so they're kind of different sides of the same coin. So we'll see if that merits. Maybe you have ideas for other tournaments we could do. Let us know. This was kind of fun, even though my staff is probably getting mad at me right now because these are also a lot of work. So I'll just leave it for there. Instead, let's before we move on, any thoughts on Lightspeed taking it, Uncle Mike or Rock Lobster?
I got to be honest with you, Mark. I was going to go with Lightspeed, but then I heard you talking about Lightspeed a little bit, and then you stopped yourself. So I thought I could get a clue. But as usual, you were good at being elusive on giving stuff away. So my compliments to you. So I'll claim reverse umbrage on you for that.
That was a little bit of a tease there, sir. I was trying to build up some excitement.
You did. You did a great job with that.
That's why I get the big bucks. Speaking of big bucks, we got a question here. We'll get to some listener questions. I know you're all saying, hey, get to my question. Game Day Dog, he's written in before. Doesn't sound like he's doing well, so this doesn't. He says, oh, man, my vertical put spread has gone bad. He didn't include a graph or anything. I don't think he told us what ticker it is. Oh, no, LULU. Okay. He says he bought 3 options. These are puts now, 61.5 in LULU. Sold 3 at the 62.5. Doesn't say what month or anything, so obviously he sold a 3 lot of this $1 put spread. So 62.5, 61.5 put spread. Let's see how this is going. It's $50, $51 today off another buck. So he goes on to say, yesterday it gapped down to 50. I believe this came in right before the weekend. I now have 200 shares of LULU in my account, plus 3 put options at 61.5, and then I'm short one at 62.5. Now, I thought it was a $300 max risk spread. Do I have to do anything? Do I sell the shares? Everything expires in 7 days. Please help. Thanks. So I learned about selling, and he goes on to say, so I learned about selling shares and back ratio spreads and even got a $19 credit. So I was going to say, ask him where those shares came from. Sounds like he may have closed out 2 of them himself and sold some stock, or bought some stock with that side. He doesn't really explain too much of the details. Obviously, selling a put spread in LULU, if you don't mess around with the shares, you got to give us a little more clarification on exactly what happened with the share side. I can't imagine someone's putting shares to you. I guess that could have happened. But if you are sitting on the stock right now, obviously that doesn't expire in 7 days, so you got a little bit longer time frame with the stock. But the puts, you're right. You are right there. Those do expire. So it sounds like you got yourself a put spread that kind of went a little bit against you, as well as some stock that clearly is a bit against you. So now you got a couple of. You mentioned your back ratio spreads. You might be, if you think it's going to turn around, if you want to dump it, that's your call if you don't like these levels here. But this is also a good situation for what they call a quote-unquote stock repair strategy as well, if you think it can make it back. There's some good ways to break that down and kind of, shall we say, reduce your break even back from where you were around the 60s, make it a little bit more manageable. Uncle Mike, would you start him off there, or do you have some other thoughts here for our friend Mr. Game Day Dog, who's not feeling the love on his short vertical put spread in LULU?
No, the good news is that when it sounds like you were assigned on 200 of the 300 shares that were assignable. I don't know if that's necessarily a word, but with that, in terms of do you have to do something, it depends on how much buying power you have. If you have the buying power to hold that stock, then no, you don't have to do anything with it. And likely, if you don't have the buying power to do anything, then someone would have called you by now telling you that you do have to do something. But all that being said, the bottom line is that the maximum risk on that put spread, if I heard the strike prices correctly, 61.5, 62.5, should be $300 as the maximum risk minus the credit you received. Now, yes, you're probably seeing an astronomical number right now in the loss column with that stock. But keep in mind, you still own those 2 put options. So the 2 put options counterbalance any loss beyond the 61.5 level. I believe that's what the short strike was. So you can go 2 routes with this. The first route, if you have the buying power, you want to stay in it for the next week, then by all means, you've already likely lost everything that you possibly can anyway. What'll happen on expiration is if the stock is more than 1 penny below the long strike, then it's going to be automatically exercised, meaning that those stocks will be gone and you will have sold those 200 shares of stock at 61.5 per share. And you would have made your maximum loss. If you want other ways to use your capital during the week, then sell the stock, sell the put. But here's the disadvantage of selling the put right now. It's likely that the bid-ask spread on that is 9 miles wide. So you might not get that great of a fill on it, but it depends on what you want to do with it. So the pros of getting out of it is that you can use your money elsewhere. The cons are that you're likely going to have a very wide bid-ask spread on the put because it's so far in the money. In terms of the remaining short put that you have, you're in a similar situation. It just looks different in that, yes, you have those ginormous losses on that short put, but the gains on the long put counterbalance all of them past the 61.5 level. So I would say if you know that you're not going to use the money the rest of the week, what the heck, stay in it. It's not going to hurt you anymore. But if you have other ideas of where you want to use that money, and this is under the assumption that you have that money in your account, if you have other areas with which you want to use that money, well, then you may want to look to start getting out of it in some way, shape, or form. So that's my take on it. Typically with selling a put spread, there's no defense against a gap down like what LULU had. So I typically stick with indices because the gap downs are far less likely to happen when it comes to vertical put spreads. So that is my thought.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because his initial question makes it sound like exactly what you said, Uncle Mike, that he had the stock and he got assigned. That was my first assumption as well. But then he wrote in later saying how he learned about selling shares and doing some other stuff. So it made it sound like he might have taken it off himself, which was, I was a little confused then as to what exactly was going on with this trade. Either way, if it is like you just got assigned, Uncle Mike said, then yeah, you do have the puts and you're good to go. If you're up to something else, then let us know. We clarify it for us a bit so we can kind of help you. But yeah, I do feel for you though. If this is one of your first forays into selling a spread, you do it the right way, you get covered, and then you get all this other crazy stuff happens that it looks terrifying and looks confusing and is probably overwhelming to you. So you did the right thing. You wrote into us. Just give us a little bit more details and as to what you were doing with the stock there. I'm assuming you got assigned, in which case everything Uncle Mike said is correct. But if you did something else funky, let us know what this $19 credit and some of your ratio spreads are, and we can play with it. Mr. Rocklops, this is not the first time I'm sure you've heard a complaint like this. You don't get a lot of times where they have aggressive gap downs like this in a $1 spread, so it's kind of a bit of an interesting scenario. What do you have to say here for our friend Mr. Game Day Dog, who's not feeling the love for his short put spread?
Yes, well, Mr. Game Day, the only thing I would say is if you got assigned 200 shares of stock, don't forget you're now long. If you sold that stock out, you're still long 3 very in the money puts. So if LULU started to rally, you would lose that money again. So you have to be careful. You either exercise your 3 puts, or as Mike said, if you can keep or exercise your 2 puts, you got to be careful because you don't want to be long those deep in the money puts if LULU happens to rally. It doesn't look like it's going to, but it could. So you got to be careful about that. And it's cheaper for you from a bid offer point of view just to exercise 2 puts against their stock, and you're guaranteed to get out for parity because you're just going to get the closing print of whatever LULU was, and then you have 1 spread left, and your short will be assigned, your long will be automatically exercised, and you're just done. So be careful about, I don't know if you want that kind of ratio put spread. The risk reward on it, if LULU rallies would be, not great. Now, if it keeps falling down, you're really short and it will work. So you got to be careful about what ratio you have on that. And actually what you have right now is the market gave you 2 synthetic calls because you're long the 61.5 puts in stock. If the stock did go back up above 61.5, you're synthetically long again. So you're actually long because your 61.5 puts will go out worthless, but you're long stock. So in essence, you would have a 61.5 call. If all that confuses you, you should work it out on a piece of paper and just, move the stock up and down and then see what you have. But you just you have to be careful with, if your long stock against long puts is automatically a hedge position. So it's cheaper just to do the assignment or to exercise your puts, get rid of the stock that way, or you're just going to be naked long those puts, which each have about $11 of intrinsic value, $11.50 of intrinsic value. That's not small because a rally would make you grumpy at that point. That's what I would say.
I feel for this guy because he did it all, the right way, risk mitigated, just trying to dip the toes, small size, and then this happens, an aggressive stock. I'm assuming that's what happened here. The aggressive sell-off. He got assigned, and now all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Like Uncle Mike said, he's got these crazy numbers on his thing. He's got this stock comes out of nowhere. 2 of his puts are gone. Hopefully, he didn't panic and sell that stock, which is probably one of his first, assumptions, because now he's blowing the hell his spread, and it's just. These are the random occurrences that sometimes drive me crazy when these poor guys are starting and they're doing all the right things, and then sometimes the arcane minutia of the options market can conspire against you. But good news is if you sit tight, you could be all right. But yeah, I can imagine those first few hours or minutes were a little bit scary. If you got more details on it or what you ended up doing, let us know, Game Day Dog. We want to hear how it worked out for you. If you have more questions, hit us up too. You got a few days left, I think, before they expire. Meanwhile, we got to keep on rolling to our final segment. It's time for Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, not so much on the earnings front right now. We do have Carmax on Thursday. We were talking about them earlier. Maybe our friend here got some interesting ideas about what's going on out there. On Thursday, they'll be for the open, so keep an eye on those. But other than that, we got the big cycle kicking off again. Not too soon, so if you need some more earnings in your life, it's coming. Don't worry. Meanwhile, let's start with you, Mr. Rock Lobster. What do you got going on for? Oh, I'm sorry, that's later. What are you watching for the rest of this week?
I'm watching to see what's going on with just Washington, D.C. and all the machinations of this. Will this Russian thing actually either be something or be nothing? Because right now all it is it seems like people are investing a lot of time in trying to find something that doesn't really exist, and then they're either going to be really right or they're going to be really wrong, and there's nothing there, and there's going to be egg all over your face. So we'll see. It seems like the market keeps swinging. Volatility keeps swinging with it. And right now, when there's a lack of things to drive volatility, that's the only thing. So really strange. Market seems to be playing a game of just what's going on in Washington.
Playing a game of what's going on in Washington, what's going on apparently in Tesla. That's all the market can focus on these days. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. What are you watching this week, sir?
Well, I kind of want to go listen to the old 5-man acoustical jam by Tesla with all this talk of it today. But besides that, we've pulled back a little bit, and I'm looking to see if we can bounce off of where we pulled back. We're at levels where we were in mid-February, immediately after the Trump speech that one night at the State of the Union. S&P rose roughly, almost 40 points. Pulled back to levels to where we are below the night of the State of the Union address. So what I'm looking at is just focusing on the numbers at this point, like I typically do, to see if this is an opportunity, a buying opportunity, or to see if I'll have egg on my face come Thursday for the bad trade I made today.
All right, everybody. That music means we've come to the end of another epic foray. You mentioned the acoustic stuff. Clearly, everybody knows the best song from Tesla is, of course, Modern Day Cowboy. So I'll forgive you that transgression. So they do have a more extensive catalog than you might think at first blush. Oh, the old days of Tesla. Good stuff. All right. But before we go, before the music kicks us off, listeners, again, congratulations to Lightspeed. They are our champion. There can be only one, and it was Lightspeed this year. Aside from that, what is cooking with each of you? I'll start with you, Mr. Rock Lobster. What's cooking in the land of the pit, aside from figuring on vertical put spreads?
Looking for our next Saturday class will be coming up, so we'll be putting that on the website soon.
I think you got your next webinar, getting assigned on a short put spread. Not to panic.
What, I guess,
don't panic.
We don't. As long as it's a spread, there's no ever. As long as you trade a spread, there is never a real need to panic. The only time, sometimes where it could be a panic, is in a hard to borrow. So you'd have to be careful with that. But that wasn't LULU at this point. So you got to be.
It'd be nice if his broker kind of explained that to him. I'm guessing that didn't happen. They say they get these scary notices. You have this stock and all this other stuff like that, and you have all these crazy balances you never anticipated in your account. And the poor guy's just doing the right thing. It's got to be scary. But that said, Mr. Rock Lobster, where can they go to find all your good stuff?
Go to optionpit.com and /mentoring and learn some stuff.
There you go. While you're at it, throw Mr. Rock Lobster a little bit of love on Twitter. He's at OptionVol, VOL. He's starting to tweet a little bit more. So get out there and encourage him. Or maybe just stick the knife in a little bit, whatever you prefer, at OptionVol on Twitter. I would recommend you talk to this guy on Twitter, but he does not tweet. He has an account. It is still an egg, I believe. Uncle Mike, what's cooking in the land of all things RCM alts?
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're looking for a financial advisor who's not afraid of the word option, or you are looking to possibly take the commission challenge, similar to the Pepsi challenge back in the 80s, and want to see if we can help you save on your commissions, call me. Would love to work with you. And I'll even throw this in today and today only. If you reach out to me via email, and you know what, I'll actually make it through April 4th for the people that are listening on the podcast. If you call me by the end of business or email me by the end of business on Tuesday, April 4th, and we end up doing business together as either an advisory client or as someone who wants to trade their account through us, I will throw in a free Tesla CD of your choice.
Oh, I might call you up just to build up my collection. I think my collection of Tesla has become a little scant over the years, so I might take advantage of that. You too can call Uncle Mike. Have him roll your puts for you. Hey, if he was babysitting your short 3-lot put spread, you wouldn't be worried. Uncle Mike would be on that for you. You wouldn't be worried about all that crazy nonsense. Give him a call or hit him up at M2Saw at RCMFS. I would say go to M2Saw on Twitter, but he doesn't really tweet there, so don't do that. But do buy his book on Amazon, $3, and you get all that goodness. On behalf of Uncle Mike and the Rock Lobster and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience for downloading and streaming and subscribing, and of course for sending with your questions. If you too have issues just like our friend here, Game Day Dog, or somebody else, maybe you have a winner. Maybe you have some other questions, let us know. Hit us up. We'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll see you on Thursday for more of the Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.